The Trapper is the most recognizable and iconic character of Dead by Daylight. He is literally its poster boy, and also quite possibly the most buff killer in this game's 9-year history. He has received a lot of unique buffs to make his power better, such as the ability to carry multiple traps, the speed boost that he gets when he resets one, and many others. But he has also benefited from virtually every single general buffs that all killers have received, such as the faster pallet break speed, the shorter attack cooldowns, and a few others as well. By all means, this should be a strong killer. And yet, if we look at any killer tier list from literally anyone, the Trapper is almost always found near the bottom. And it is here, in fact, that we have our elephant in the room. How can the poster boy of Dead by Daylight actually be so bad? What actually happened? To help us find some answers, let's go back to this match recorded a couple years ago. This was back when the Trapper had received most of his current buffs, and at least in theory, he should be stronger than ever. We started the match out by placing a few strategic traps and then trying to push survivors into them, and it seems our efforts were rewarded. One of the survivors steps on a trap and the other one seems to be about to. This could be an amazing outcome for us, but if you know anything about Trapper, is that no outcome is ever guaranteed. The survivor on the left gets rescued almost immediately. This is something that you need to know. If a survivor steps on a trap and there is another survivor nearby, the rescue is consistently very fast, and there's not much you can do about it unless you are right there. Sadly, the second survivor noticed the trap of the pallet and did not go down to it. This forced us to down him, but at this point he did something very smart, a trick that any survivor can do. If you find yourself going down next to an active trap like this one, you can actually crawl through it, and this will force a killer to actually walk into his own trap if he wants to pick you up, unless he has a certain add-on. If the killer is a little bit clumsy, you can actually force him to do it again, wasting even more time. And this is what ended up happening to me, unfortunately. I was desperately trying to pick him up on the right angle so that the pallet save would be harder, but in the end, I couldn't help it, and they got a pallet save, and in this situation, I ended up not getting a single down. Keep in mind, other killers don't down people by pallets as much, and some of them can straight up pull you out of a pallet to completely deny the pallet rescue, but this is a weakness of Trapper that he cannot really play around. When you grab a survivor out of your trap, you are completely vulnerable to flashy saves or pallet stuns, and if you hit them, you are also vulnerable to their own deep wound saving them. So unlike other killers, the Trapper has to be very careful in how he uses his power. If you use it at the wrong time or in the wrong way, sometimes your efforts will be completely invalidated. You might have noticed that in this match we were using the black tar add-on. This makes the traps almost completely black, and back then it was one of the best Trapper add-ons. The maps in general were very dark, and so was the ground, so putting a trap anywhere could make it really hard to spot. This is no longer the case, however. I would never use this add-on in the modern DBD. After the graphical rework and all the new maps, if you have this add-on on many maps, you will notice that the traps actually stand out more than if you don't have it, which is the opposite of what it's meant to do. And another thing that has changed for the worse with the graphical rework and the new maps is the grass. All maps had very thick grass in a lot of different spots that really allow you to be very creative with your traps. Survivors had to be extremely careful. Nowadays, many of the modern maps have no grass whatsoever, and the ones that do have a very thin sort of grass. A player with low settings can see through this grass no matter what, so you don't need to pause or wonder, you can literally just look in front of it. If there is a trap, no amount of grass will conceal it. It might seem like a small thing, but trust me, I used to be a Trapper main. This change in grass has changed a lot of how you can play this killer. Back to our match, we've already established that survivors can help each other out of a trap, but they can also use teamwork in different ways. Here, for example, I trapped this pallet to prevent the Talita from using it, but less than 10 seconds later, she's already back on it because someone disarmed the trap. And the saddest part is that even survivors that are on their own can sometimes outplay you by simply being lucky. The way this works is very simple. It used to be that if you step on a trap, you had a fixed chance to escape. This meant that if you were actually unlucky, you could theoretically be on a trap for a very long time. But now, that's not exactly how it works. Every time you try to escape a trap, your chances go higher and higher and higher and higher. And the thing is, you still have a very solid chance of escaping on your first try, which is exactly what happened to this Jonah. Oh, Damn, you wasted such an insane opportunity. Oh my lord. How do you even get... Like, the guy had his finger on the mouse already. Luckily, a few seconds later, he stepped on another trap, and I decided to do something a little bit funny to see if I could get away with it. Alright. Wait, chat, let's reload first. Do I have time to reload? No, I don't have time to reload! Yeah. This luck aspect of the Trapper's power is incredibly infuriating. Watch this game where I'm playing as a survivor, and the killer literally drops the chase with me to go for someone that stepped on a trap not too far away, only for them to escape on the very first try. And funnily enough, a couple minutes later, the exact same thing happened to me. I step on a trap, the killer could have reasonably gotten me, but hey, I escaped first try, so I'm completely fine, zero punishment. And from the killer's point of view, I have been in this exact scenario so many times, and it is so painful each time. Let me show you one example where one bad trap RNG ruined everything. That's my boy. I'm gonna pick up, but I'm willing to drop, by the way. You're joking. Yes, make a drop. Make a drop. Make a drop. Hold up. Okay. That's unfortunate, chat. That's just unfortunate. Yes! 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 No! Okay. She got on first try! Okay. Okay. Jesus. Sham. Man, that was awful. As you've seen during these clips, sometimes setting up a lot of traps ahead of time can be a big time investment with basically no payoff whatsoever. You might even be tempted to think that maybe the best way to play Trapper is instead to play him aggressively, like I did in this match in Nostromo. Instead of setting up a lot, you only place 1 or 2 traps, and then you immediately enter chase and use further traps during chase if needed. This might work out sometimes, but let me tell you, against good survivors, and these guys were certainly good, this simply doesn't work. Survivors will play it safe, drop pallets where they need to, they know that you don't have any significant chase power, and if you try to lock down one loop, they'll simply move on to the next. With good teamwork, they might even return back to that same loop a few seconds afterwards, and the trap will be disarmed. And let's not forget that survivors still use a variety of chase perks such as finesse or sprint burst, all of which are very good against Trapper in general. Things like syringes are also particularly painful for him because he has no way to really catch up or pressure a survivor. If someone needs to buy a little bit of time, it's very easy to do it against Trapper. So you might have moments like this one where someone heals mid-chase and my pressure completely evaporates. This particular match ended with me having 0 hook stages by the end of the game. They all made it out, and I genuinely don't think I made that many mistakes. They generally were that hard to catch. And lobbies like this, with lots of strong items and perks, are becoming more and more normalized, so it's something that you constantly have to be ready for. But wait a minute, look at these survivors. They all had really good builds, they brought some insane items, and they still died to a Trapper. How exactly did we win this game? Well, you might have guessed it, it's thanks to the basement. If survivors make the mistake of going down next to basement, this is still one of the major threats that this killer can impose to turn a game around. Historically, basement was incredibly powerful for Trapper. There were a lot of sneaky traps that you could put around it. Back then, the timer on the hook was shorter. And if you went down next to basement, it was pretty much a death sentence unless there was like 1 gen left to go or the killer made a mistake. Nowadays, things are not so easy. Survivors have multiple perks to unhook themselves out of basement and more second chance perks to work around it. The time that they spend in the hook down there is actually 20 seconds longer, which means that they could easily do 3 or more gens if you decide to camp, and camping also needs to be done very carefully. If you stay too far, survivors can break into it. If you stay too close, the person down there can gain anti-camp meter, which can allow them to unhook themselves without anyone's help. I'm not saying that basement is weak, it still remains one of the best things for Trapper, but it's definitely not as good as before. And that is assuming that you have a basement in a place like Shack. Many of the current maps do not have basements like that. They instead have basements in the open with no tight doorways or windows around them. And this is perfectly fine for other killers, but again, it's something that hurts the Trapper a little bit more. Another major source of strength for Trapper over the years was Totems. The Trapper was one of the best killers in the game at using hex builds. If you allowed him to set up enough traps around his totems, you could find yourself in a situation where cleansing them was super risky. You could be caught, you could be injured, or go down next to them, all of which could be a disaster for your team. But if you try to use this type of build nowadays, you will find that more and more maps now have totems that sit in the open. In this match that I played a few weeks ago, for example, I had 3 hexes, and all 3 of them were in places where I could not realistically trap them. If a totem is sitting in the open, if you trap one side, the survivors will simply cleanse it from a different side. This is something that didn't happen before, but that has again gotten worse pretty much only for the Trapper, while not really affecting other killers. And the saddest part is that some of these new map changes are actually good for the game while still being bad for Trapper. For example, back in old DBD days, most maps had one very strong window and maybe a few very strong pallets, and it was actually quite easy for the Trapper to trap around them and survivors would flock to these places, and it worked out pretty well. The developers eventually removed these very strong windows. They introduced things like breakable walls and they added more pallets, sometimes weaker pallets, but more of them nonetheless. This does result in better gameplay sometimes, but again, it just indirectly nerfs the Trapper because now it's harder for him to anticipate which one pallet or window a survivor is going to use. Many of these new filler pallets also have a problem in that they have very thin walls around them. This means that if you trap them on the side like you normally do, survivors have too much of a gap and they can actually squeeze right through, ignoring your trap. And if you trap it on the middle, which is the only option left, well, we all know what happens. A survivor can just drop the pallet and then the trap is completely nullified. Now, one thing I want to make clear is that this video is by no means an exhaustive list of every Trapper nerf ever. There are so many that I probably don't remember or don't even know yet. All I'm trying to say here is that the Trapper, despite receiving a lot of direct buffs, has also received many more indirect nerfs. And that is probably what makes him feel so bad to play nowadays. And so we have to ask ourselves, if the Trapper has become so bad over time, is this a problem that the developers are trying to correct? And the answer is no, because they don't perceive it as a problem. In their own words, they are happy with his kill rate, they believe that this killer is good enough as it is, and even though you might be shocked learning this after seeing all of his weaknesses in this video, it actually does make quite a lot of sense. For the most part, the Trapper is a killer played by beginners against other beginners. Newer players in Dead by Daylight are less aware of their surrounding. They are more likely to step on random traps, they are much more likely to end up getting themselves put in a basement. All of the advanced maneuvers that high-level players can do to help each other out of traps and avoid them altogether, these are very unintuitive. No one really explains to you how to do these things. So it makes perfect sense that newer players do not play around the Trapper as well. And let's not forget about his add-ons. The Trapper's add-ons are really not that strong against good survivors, but they are incredibly punishing for newer players. Traps that rearm themselves randomly are very confusing. Traps that injure you just for disarming them do a lot of damage to unprepared teams. And let's not even talk about the one add-on that prevents you from escaping a trap if you don't have help. And if you don't know about it, you might end up downing yourself without realizing it. So in summary, we have a killer that will most likely not get any major rework, while every other killer around the tier list is either gonna get a buff, has already been buffed, or is waiting for a rework. So yeah, I really don't see a bright future for Trapper. If you're one of those people that still struggles against him, don't forget that you can actually bring one single item and that can reveal his traps. His only power can still be revealed by maps for some insane reason. Yeah, there really is no hope for this guy.